I am sitting alone in an empty apartment tonight, and everything I once believed in has crumbled into dust. 10 months ago, I boarded a plane to serve my country overseas, leaving behind the woman I loved more than life itself. I counted every single day until I could hold her again. But when I finally walked through that door, expecting her warm embrace, I found something that shattered me completely. What I discovered that afternoon still haunts me, and what I did next changed everything. Before I tell you what I saw that day, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. And if stories about betrayal and redemption speak to you, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you will want to stay until the end of this one, because the way I responded to my family still echoes in my mind to this day. My name is Ramiro, and I grew up in a small town in Texas where everybody knew everybody, and secrets rarely stayed hidden for long. My father Harold worked as an electrician, spending long hours fixing wiring in old houses and commercial buildings. My mother Denise was a nurse at the local hospital, pulling double shifts more often than not. We were a middle-class family, nothing fancy, but we had a roof over our heads and food on the table. I have a younger brother named Kyle, 4 years my junior. From the moment he was born, something shifted in our household. I noticed it even as a kid, though I could not put it into words back then. Kyle always got the new clothes while I wore hand-me-downs. When Kyle wanted the latest video game, my parents found a way to buy it. When I asked for things, there was always a reason why we could not afford it right now. The pattern continued as we grew older. Kyle got a brand new car for his high school graduation, a shiny blue sedan that made all his friends jealous. When I graduated 4 years earlier, my parents told me I needed to learn the value of hard work, so I saved up from my part-time job at the grocery store and bought a beat-up truck with 200,000 miles on it. When Kyle got caught sneaking out at night or skipping classes, my parents would shake their heads and say, "Boys will be boys." When I made the smallest mistake, I faced lectures that lasted hours and punishments that stretched for weeks. I learned early on that the rules were different for my brother and me. But here is the thing. I never held it against Kyle. He was just a kid benefiting from circumstances he did not create. And I never confronted my parents about it either. I figured that was just how some families worked. Some kids were favorites, and some were not. I accepted it as my reality and moved on. After graduating high school, I knew college was not in the cards for me. My parents made it clear they would help Kyle with his education when the time came, but there was not enough saved up for both of us. So I did what felt right. I walked into the Army recruitment office 3 days after graduation and signed my name on the dotted line. The military would give me structure, purpose, and a way to build my own future without depending on anyone. I spent my early 20s moving from base to base, learning discipline, forming bonds with fellow soldiers, and finding the family I had always craved. The Army became my home in ways my actual home never had been. Then, when I was 25 years old, everything changed. I was stationed at Fort Hood, and one afternoon, I walked into a small coffee shop just outside the base. That is where I saw her for the first time. Brooke. She was working behind the counter, her chestnut brown hair pulled up in a messy ponytail, her hazel eyes sparkling as she laughed at something her coworker said. When she handed me my coffee, our fingers brushed, and she smiled at me in a way that made my heart skip a beat. I must have looked like a complete fool standing there unable to form words. I came back the next day, and the day after that. By the end of the week, I finally worked up the courage to ask her out. To my amazement, she said yes. Those first 6 months of dating. Brooke felt like a dream I never wanted to wake up from. She was kind, funny, and genuine in a way that felt rare. She did not care about my military salary or my lack of fancy possessions. She cared about who I was as a person. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. A year after we met, I proposed to her on a quiet beach during a weekend getaway. She cried and said yes before I even finished asking the question. We got married 2 months later in a small ceremony at a local church. I was 26 and Brooke was 24. I still remember every detail of that day. Brooke walked down the aisle in a simple white dress that took my breath away. I stood at the altar in my dress uniform, trying not to cry in front of everyone. Kyle served as my best man, cracking jokes and patting my back. My parents sat in the front row smiling, though I noticed they spent most of the reception talking to Kyle about his college plans rather than congratulating me and my new bride. But I did not let it bother me. I had Brooke now, and that was all that mattered. The first 2 years of our marriage were the happiest of my life. We rented a small apartment near the base, nothing special, just a one-bedroom place with thin walls and a leaky faucet that I kept promising to fix. Brooke got a job as a receptionist at a dental clinic, and we would come home each evening to cook dinner together and talk about our days. We made plans for the future. We wanted to buy a house eventually, maybe somewhere with a yard where our kids could play. We talked about having children, but we decided to wait until after my next deployment. I wanted to be present for that chapter of our lives, not thousands of miles away. Then the orders came. I was being deployed to the Middle East for 12 months. It was not unexpected. I had known another deployment was coming. But knowing something and facing it are two very different things. The night before I left, Brooke and I lay in bed talking until the early hours of the morning. She told me she would miss me every single day. I told her I would call whenever I could, that I would count the minutes until I could hold her again. She promised to wait for me. I promised to come back safe. Before I left, I did something that seemed logical at the time. I asked Kyle to look after Brooke while I was gone. He had graduated from college by then and was working at a marketing firm in the same city. I figured he could check in on her help if anything broke in the apartment, just be there if she needed someone. Kyle agreed without hesitation. He put his hand on my shoulder and looked me in the eyes. "Do not worry about a thing," he said. "I will make sure she is taken care of." I remember feeling grateful. I thought maybe Kyle was finally growing up, finally becoming someone I could rely on. I hugged him and thanked him for being there. At the airport, Brooke cried against my chest while I stroked her hair and whispered that everything would be okay. My parents came to see me off too, though they spent most of the time discussing something with Kyle off to the side. I tried not to notice. I had bigger things to focus on. As I boarded that plane, I looked back one last time and saw Brooke waving, tears streaming down her face. I carried that image with me through every difficult day that followed, never suspecting that it would be one of the last pure memories I would have of us. The first 2 months of deployment went exactly as I expected. The work was hard, the conditions were tough, but I had been through this before. What kept me going were the video calls with Brooke every week. She would tell me about her day at the clinic, about the funny patients and the annoying ones. She asked about my life on base, and I shared what I could without worrying her. During those calls, I could see our apartment in the background, the same pictures on the walls, the same throw blanket on the couch. It felt like a tether connecting me to home, to normalcy, to everything I was fighting to return to. But somewhere around the 3rd month, things started to shift. The calls became shorter. Brooke always seemed to have somewhere to be, something urgent that cut our conversations to just a few minutes. She said work was getting busier, that she was picking up extra shifts. I understood. I told her to take care of herself and not to worry about me. By the 4th month, she started changing the times of our scheduled calls. She would cancel at the last minute, saying something came up. When we did connect, she kept the camera angled at her face, never showing the apartment anymore. She said she had rearranged things and the place was a mess. I believed her. One evening during month 4, we were on a video call when I heard a door open in the background. Then I heard a voice, a male voice that sounded oddly familiar. Brooke quickly turned off her camera and said it was just Kyle stopping by to check on things. He brought groceries, she explained. I thanked her for letting me know and asked her to tell Kyle I said hello. I did not think twice about it. I had asked Kyle to look out for her after all. This was exactly what I wanted. Months 5 and 6 brought more of the same. Brooke stopped turning her camera on, entirely blaming poor internet connection. Our calls dropped to once every 2 weeks instead of weekly. When we did talk, her voice sounded different, distant, like she was reading from a script. She rarely said "I love you" anymore, and when she did, it felt hollow. My buddy Marcus noticed the change in me. We had been through 2 deployments together, and he could read me like a book. One night, sitting outside the barracks, he asked what was eating at me. I told him about Brooke, about how disconnected she seemed lately. Marcus shrugged and said, "Long distance is hard on everyone. She is probably just stressed," he told me. "Do not overthink it." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Month 7 arrived, and Brooke missed 2 scheduled calls in a row without any explanation. I started to panic. I called my parents to ask if everything was okay back home. My mother answered, and her voice sounded strange, almost nervous. "Brooke is fine," she said quickly. "She is just busy with work. You know how it is. Do not worry about anything." I asked to speak to my father, but my mother said he was not home. She rushed me off the phone, claiming she had to get to her shift at the hospital. Something felt wrong, but I could not put my finger on what. I tried calling Kyle next. He did not answer. I called 3 more times over the following days, but he never picked up. Finally, he sent me a text message. "Bro, everything is fine. Brooke is just tired from work. I am looking out for her like you asked. Focus on your mission and do not stress." I stared at that message for a long time. It should have reassured me. Instead, it made the knot in my stomach tighten. Month 8 came and went with only one brief call from Brooke. She looked tired on camera, the brief moment she turned it on. I asked if something was wrong, if there was anything she wanted to tell me. She hesitated for just a second, then said, "No, everything was fine. She just missed me." For the first time in our relationship, I felt like she was lying to me. By month 9, Brooke had essentially stopped communicating altogether. My calls went to voicemail. My texts received one-word replies hours or days later. I was going out of my mind with worry and confusion. My father called me once during that time. He said the family was doing well, that I should not worry about anything back home. "Just focus on staying safe and finishing my tour," he told me. "We are all proud of you." I wanted to ask more questions, but he ended the call quickly. Everyone seemed to be rushing me off the phone, and I could not figure out why. Then during month 10, my unit received unexpected news. Our mission had been completed ahead of schedule, and we were being sent home 2 months early. Most of the guys celebrated. I felt something else entirely, a mix of relief and dread that I could not explain. I decided not to tell anyone I was coming home. I wanted to surprise Brooke, to show up at our door and see her face light up when she realized I was back. I imagined sweeping her into my arms, spinning her around, finally being home after all those months apart. The flight back to Texas felt endless. I sat in my seat with my knee bouncing, watching the minutes tick by on my watch. I pictured our reunion over and over, each version more perfect than the last. I landed in the late afternoon and rented a car from the airport. The drive to our apartment took 45 minutes, but it felt like hours. My heart pounded harder with every mile. When I finally pulled into the parking lot, I noticed an unfamiliar car in Brooke's usual spot. I figured maybe one of her friends was visiting. I grabbed my duffel bag and walked up the stairs to our second-floor apartment, my hands trembling slightly as I reached for my keys. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment was quiet. The furniture was the same, but something felt different. There were small changes everywhere, things moved around, new decorations I did not recognize. Then I saw them. A pair of men's shoes by the door. Not my shoes. My blood ran cold. I moved through the apartment like a ghost, my military training kicking in without me even realizing it. Silent steps, controlled breathing. I reached the bedroom door and pushed it open. The room was empty. The bed was made. But something on the nightstand caught my eye. I walked over and picked it up. It was an ultrasound photo. The date printed on it was from 2 months ago. According to the image, the baby was 6 months along at the time of the scan. I did the math in my head 3 times, hoping I was wrong. I had been gone for 10 months. If this baby was 8 months along now, that meant... The sound of a car pulling up outside broke through my thoughts. I heard doors closing, then laughter. Familiar laughter. I stood there holding that ultrasound frozen in place as the front door opened. Brooke walked in first, her hand intertwined with someone else's. Her belly was unmistakably pregnant, round and full. Behind her, still holding her hand, was Kyle. They both stopped dead when they saw me. Brooke's face went white as a sheet. Kyle dropped her hand like it was on fire and took a step backward. The ultrasound trembled in my grip. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, I found my voice. It came out calm, much calmer than I felt. "How long?" Brooke started crying immediately. She stammered out apologies, said it was not supposed to happen this way, that she never meant to hurt me. Kyle held up his hands like he was trying to calm a wild animal. "Bro, listen. Just let us explain," he started. "How long?" My voice was ice. Brooke flinched at the sound of it. Through her sobs, she told me everything. It started 2 months after I deployed. Kyle had been coming over to check on her just like I asked. One night she was feeling lonely and vulnerable. He was there. One thing led to another. They had been together for 8 months. The baby was his. I felt something crack inside my chest. It was not a physical sensation, but it might as well have been. My vision blurred. My ears rang. I had to grab the nightstand to keep from falling over. I looked at my brother, at the man I had trusted to protect my wife. Did Mom and Dad know Kyle could not meet my eyes? His silence was all the answer I needed. 3 days later, my parents called a family dinner. They said it was important that we all talk, that we needed to work through this as a family. Against my better judgment, I agreed to come. I walked into my parents' house and found everyone already gathered in the dining room. My father, Harold, sat at the head of the table, his expression serious. My mother, Denise, sat beside him, her eyes red from crying. Kyle and Brooke were there too, sitting together on the opposite side of the table. Brooke could not look at me. Kyle stared at his plate. I took a seat and waited. My father cleared his throat and began speaking. He said that what happened was unfortunate, but it happened. We could not change the past. The most important thing now was to protect the family, to keep us together. My mother chimed in, her voice shaky. She said Brooke was carrying a baby that would be part of our family whether I liked it or not. Kyle had already agreed to take responsibility to raise the child with Brooke. They wanted to make things right. Then came the request I knew was coming, but still was not prepared to hear. They wanted me to forgive Kyle and Brooke. They wanted me to move past this, to pretend it never happened. They said it would destroy the family if this got out. People would talk. Our reputation would be ruined. My mother started crying harder. She said she could not bear to lose either of her sons over this. She begged me to think about the bigger picture. My father added that I was the strong one, that I had always been able to handle anything life threw at me. He said he knew I could get through this, that I could find it in my heart to forgive. Kyle finally spoke up, muttering an apology that sounded rehearsed. "I am sorry, bro," he said. "I never wanted this to happen." Brooke kept her head down, silent, except for occasional sniffles. I sat there and listened to all of it. Every word, every excuse, every plea for forgiveness that was really a plea for me to make their lives easier by swallowing my pain. When they finished, I remained silent for a long moment. Then I stood up from my chair. I looked at each of them in turn. My father, who had always held me to impossible standards while letting Kyle slide. My mother, who had always made excuses for her favorite son. Kyle, who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. Brooke, who had broken every promise she ever made. Then I started talking. I reminded them of every moment growing up when I had been treated as less than. The hand-me-down clothes while Kyle got everything new. The used truck I had to buy myself while Kyle received a car as a gift. The way my achievements were overlooked while Kyle's smallest accomplishments were celebrated. I reminded them that I joined the army because they made it clear there was no money for my education, even though they found the money for Kyle's college tuition 2 years later. I reminded them that even on my wedding day, they had spent more time talking to Kyle about his future than congratulating me and my bride. I told them about the nights in the desert when I thought I might not make it home. About how the only thing that kept me going was the thought of my wife and my family waiting for me. About how I had trusted Kyle with the most precious thing in my life, and he had taken that trust and destroyed it. My voice never rose. I did not yell. I did not cry. I simply spoke the truth that had been building inside me for 30 years. When I finished, I looked directly at my parents. "You are not asking me to forgive," I said. "You are asking me to pretend I do not matter." Again, just like always. But this time I am done. I told them I would be filing for divorce. I told them I was cutting Kyle out of my life completely. And I told them that if they chose to stand with Kyle over me, they would lose me too. My mother gasped. She reached out toward me crying, saying I could not do this to the family. I stepped back from her hand. "You already made your choice years ago," I said. "I am just finally making mine." I walked out of that house without looking back. The door closed behind me, and for the first time in my life, I felt something I had never experienced before. Freedom. The weeks that followed were some of the darkest of my life. I checked into a motel near the base and barely left my room. I did not eat. I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Brooke and Kyle walking through that door together hand in hand. I started drinking more than I should have. Whiskey became my only companion during those long nights. I told myself I was just numbing the pain temporarily, that I would pull myself together soon. But the truth was, I did not know if I could. One night, about 2 weeks after I walked out of my parents' house, there was a knock on my motel room door. I opened it to find Marcus standing there with a duffel bag over his shoulder. He had taken emergency leave and flown across the country when I told him what happened. He did not say much. He just walked in, looked around at the empty bottles and the mess I had become, and sat down in the chair across from me. For 3 days, Marcus stayed with me. He made me eat. He poured the whiskey down the drain. He sat with me in silence when I did not want to talk, and listened when I did. One night I caught a glimpse of myself in the bathroom mirror and did not recognize the person staring back. Hollow eyes, unshaven face, slumped shoulders. I looked broken. Marcus appeared in the doorway behind me. "This is not you," he said quietly. "You survived worse than this. Do not let them destroy you now." Those words hit me harder than anything else could have. He was right. I had survived combat loss and years of being overlooked by my own family. I had built a life for myself from nothing. I was not going to let their betrayal be the thing that finally broke me. I filed for divorce the next week. Brooke did not contest it. She signed the papers without argument, and 3 months later, I was officially a free man. I requested a transfer to a new base in Colorado, as far from Texas as I could get, while staying in the country. The Army approved it, and I packed up what little I had left and drove west. Colorado was a fresh start in every sense. New mountains, new faces, new opportunities. I threw myself into my work and earned a promotion within 6 months. I started running every morning, feeling my body grow stronger as my mind slowly healed. I joined a support group for veterans dealing with personal struggles. At first, I just listened to others share their stories. Eventually, I started sharing mine. There was something powerful about saying the words out loud, about admitting the pain, without drowning in it. The one person from my old life who reached out was my grandmother Linda, my father's mother. She was 82 years old and sharp as a tack. When she heard what happened, she called me directly. She had not known about the affair until after everything exploded. She was furious with Kyle and disappointed in my parents for trying to cover it up. She told me she was proud of me for standing up for myself, that I had done the right thing by walking away. Grandma Linda and I started talking regularly after that. She became the one family connection I maintained, the one person who saw me for who I really was. About a year after my divorce, I started volunteering at a community center that helped veterans transition back to civilian life. That is where I met someone new, a woman named Claire, who ran the job placement program. She was kind, patient, and understood brokenness in a way that only someone who had experienced it could. We became friends first. I was not ready for anything more, and she never pushed. But for the first time since Brooke, I felt the possibility of something new on the horizon. My parents tried to contact me multiple times over that year. Calls, texts, even a letter once. I never responded. I did not hate them, but I had nothing left to say. They had made their choice, and I had made mine. I heard through Grandma Linda that Kyle and Brooke were raising the baby together. She also mentioned that they argued constantly, that the relationship was rocky at best. I did not take any satisfaction in that news. I did not feel anything at all. Their lives were no longer my concern. Looking back now, I have learned some hard truths about life and family. Forgiveness is a choice, but it does not mean accepting mistreatment. I could release my anger without inviting those people back into my life. I could wish them well from a distance without pretending they had not hurt me. Blood does not make someone family. The soldiers I served with Marcus, who flew across the country to save me from myself. Grandma Linda, who called to tell me she was proud, those people showed me more love than my parents and brother ever did. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. Staying would have destroyed me slowly. Leaving gave me the chance to rebuild something better. And perhaps most importantly, I learned that my worth is not determined by how others treat me. I spent 30 years believing I was somehow less valuable because my family treated me that way. But that was their failure, not mine. These days, I wake up in my small apartment in Colorado and feel something I never felt in Texas. Peace. The mountains outside my window remind me every morning that there is a whole world beyond the pain of my past. I am building a new life, one choice at a time. I do not know what the future holds, but I know I will face it on my own terms. Sometimes the hardest battles are not fought on foreign soil. They are fought within the walls of our own homes. But if there is one thing the military taught me, it is this: never surrender your dignity, not even to those who share your blood. Because at the end of the day, the only person who has to live with your choices is you. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to walk away from family to save yourself? Or maybe you are facing a situation right now where you are being asked to forgive something unforgivable. Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and you never know who might need to hear your experience. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like to help others find it. Subscribe to this channel for more real-life stories about overcoming betrayal and finding strength. And if you know someone who is struggling with a toxic family situation, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing we are not alone is the first step toward healing. Thank you for watching and for being part of this community. I wish you peace, strength, and the courage to always choose yourself when it matters most. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.